agenda is the report by Mrs. Strick, existence of a clear risk of a serious breach in Hungary by Hungary of the values on which the Union is founded. I will give the floor in first place to the reporter, Madame Strick.
Thank you, Chair, dear Chair. I wish I could have said thank you, Council, but I'm sorry. But thank you very much, Commissioner, for being here. More than 7 years ago, the Parliament initiated the Article 7 procedure against Hungary. And it saddens and worries me deeply that in this second interim report we conclude that Hungary has continued and increased its violation of EU values. And in this report, we point out a dizzying area of new, even more extreme violations. Let me just mention a few. Judicial independence is under extreme pressure due to the capture of the highest courts, which even sideline judgments of the CGU. The government continues to rule by decree under the so-called state of danger, recently extended until after the elections in April next year. Corruption remains widespread and anti-corruption bodies are being obstructed. School curriculums are under increasing ideological influence and teachers' right to strike is curtailed. The media environment is in the hands of pro-government propaganda attacking critical voices relentlessly. The government subjects independent media and civil society organizations to smear campaigns and intimidating investigations claiming foreign interference, a Russian-style practice to silence them. A pending draft law could even cut them off from all realistic funding, thus emptying civic space and meaningful checks and balances in Hungary. LGBTIQ people face restrictions of their rights, including through the Pride bans with facial recognition enforcement. The organizer of the Pride in Page is currently facing a criminal investigation simply for peacefully standing up for the rights of the LGBTIQ people. Mind you, this is happening within the EU in 2025. So in this report, we conclude that Hungary has turned into a hybrid regime of electoral autocracy. And the most worrying thing is that this total crackdown of the freedoms of people, rule of law and democracy has not led to any meaningful action by the Council. To the contrary, during 7 years of the Article 7 procedure, the Council enabled Orban to enrich himself at the cost of society and our European values, and even let him hijack and undermine our security policy. The Commission failed to take decisive and effective action at crucial moments. Hungarian people received the message that their freedoms and democracy are not safe in the EU's hands. It's high time to choose their side and act with urgency. The EU institutions must use all available tools to stop this. This report calls upon the Commission to use infringement procedures in a more effective way and to take additional budgetary measures by freezing up to 100% of EU funds for Hungary. Additionally, the report calls upon the Council to identify a risk under Article 7, paragraph 1 and initiate the procedure under paragraph 2, including the possible suspending of voting rights. The report states that any further inaction would be a breach of the rule of law principle by the Council itself. So I am proud to present this report with the support of a broad, constructive majority in this Parliament, and I thank my shadow rapporteur sincerely for the team spirit in which the report came about. It shows the Parliament's unwavering support to the Hungarian people and the European values. And finally, last October, at its 9th hearing on the Article 7 procedure, the Council itself concluded that more member states want to see action. Well then, Council, take it. You have all the evidence of the value breached, and with this report, you will once again have our urgent call to act. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. Commissioner McGrath, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, Mr. Vice President. Honourable members, thank you for this opportunity to debate with you today in the context of the new interim report presented by Rapporteur Ms. Tanika Strick on the existence of a clear risk of a serious breach by Hungary of the values on which the Union is founded. And can I thank MEP Strick and all of those who contributed to the work on this report. The rule of law is one of the founding values of the European Union, enshrined in Article 2 of the Treaty on the European Union. Protecting and promoting the rule of law is a major priority for me as Commissioner and for the whole College of Commissioners. We continue to share many of the concerns expressed by the Parliament in its reasoned proposal of September 2018, triggering the Article 7.1 procedure for Hungary. The procedure under Article 7.1 TEU covers a wide range of rule of law issues. The Council has so far held 9 formal hearings on Hungary, most recently on the 21st of October, which I attended at the GAC. In the framework of the Article 7.1 procedure, the Commission always stands ready to participate in hearings and state of play points in the Council, and is of the view that the procedure should be maintained as long as the issues that triggered it are not resolved. It is for the Council to decide on next steps in that procedure, acting by a majority of 4/5 of its members and after the consent of the European Parliament. The Commission's concerns regarding the rule of law in Hungary are clearly stated in the Commission's annual Rule of Law reports, the last edition of which was published on the 8th of July this year. As stated in that report, on 7 out of 8 recommendations of the Rule of Law report made in 2024, there has been no progress. Time doesn't allow me to go through them all individually. Significant progress has been recorded only on 1 recommendation related to salaries in the justice system. It's also relevant to note that the Commission launched several infringement proceedings relating to the areas covered by the Parliament's reasoned proposal, such as the rights of civil society organisations, academic freedom, media freedom, the rights of migrants and asylum seekers, the rights of LGBTIQ people, as well as infringements in relation to the functioning of the single market. For instance, just last week, the Commission decided to open an infringement procedure against Hungary for failing to comply with the EU rules when awarding its waste management concession for the entire territory of the country. The Commission will not hesitate to take further action if necessary. Beyond the annual Rule of Law report and infringement proceedings, the Commission assesses Hungary's efforts to strengthen the rule of law in 4 parallel procedures: the general regime of budget conditionality, Recovery and Resilience Facility, the horizontal enabling condition of the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights, and a country-specific recommendation under the European semester. The first 3 procedures I referred to have resulted in the suspension of certain payments to Hungary. Overall, the funding that remains blocked for Hungary amounts at present to approximately €18 billion, and around €1 billion of the initial cohesion policy allocation has been definitively lost. The Charter horizontal enabling condition remains non-fulfilled because concerns persist related to Hungary's so-called child protection law, academic freedom and the right to asylum. These together affect €2.8 billion in EU funding. Regarding the RRF, the Commission will assess the fulfilment of the conditions for payment, including the so-called super milestones, once Hungary submits a request for payment. The procedure under the Budget Conditionality Regulation concerns anti-corruption related rule of law issues. The measures adopted by the Council remain in place for as long as Hungary has not adopted remedies that put an end to the breaches of the principles of the rule of law affecting the sound financial management of the Union budget and/or the protection of the financial interests of the Union. Finally, on the 8th of July, in the context of the European semester, the Council, following the Commission's recommendation, adopted country-specific recommendations for Hungary related to the rule of law and the single market. Specifically, the Council recommended that Hungary take action to improve the regulatory framework and enhance competition in markets for products and services, in particular in retail. To attain these objectives, the Council recommended that Hungary should avoid arbitrary administrative interventions, tailor-made legislation providing undue advantage or disadvantage to specific companies and market-distorting state-supported transactions. Hungary should also reduce the use of emergency measures to what is strictly necessary in line with the principles of the single market and the rule of law. To conclude, Chair, let me affirm to you the Commission remains fully attentive to the rule of law situation in Hungary. The implementation of some of the reforms undertaken by Hungary in recent years continues, also as a result of processes at EU level. However, significant concerns continue to persist, as my intervention today has also made clear. Thank you for your attention to these initial remarks, and I look forward to the views of the honourable members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner. On behalf of the EPP Group, Mr. Wadrikewicz.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, for presentation of your statement with this regard. As one of the shadow rapporteurs to this report on Article 7, procedure regarding the situation in the rule of law preservation in Hungary, I would like to say that this is second report of this House, which launched the procedure from the Article 7 of the treaty against the Hungarian government, and we have been able to prepare this report on the basis of the rulings of both courts, of the Court of Justice of the European Union and the European Court of Human Rights, on the basis of assessment of the European Commission with that regard, and especially on the basis of the visit on the ground in Budapest. We had the chance to visit Budapest together with the rapporteur, Tineke Strik, and other shadow rapporteurs. And unfortunately, what we observed in Budapest, in Hungary, is that all of the standards of the rule of law and the preservation of the human rights are unfortunately dropped down within that time since the last visit in Budapest of the delegation from the European Parliament. So we described all of the violations of the rule of law very precisely in this report, and we are presenting the full description to this House, which launched the procedure against the Hungarian Parliament, against the Hungarian government 8 years ago in 2018. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. Madame Dobrev, on behalf of the S&D Group.
Good afternoon, colleagues. What is life like in a country where one party has a two-thirds majority and is therefore able to decide on everything? What is it like for everyday citizens in a country where one person has power over everything? We don't very often ask that question, even in the European Parliament. But for 15 years now, we've been saying that democracy is over in Hungary, and that is right. We have power without restrictions. But I'd like to just outline what this is like for everyday Hungarians. The whole country is under the rule of one party, and this is the case all over the country, where civil servants are afraid of Mr. Orbán and his orders. We have a political mafia, and there's basically no market economy in Hungary, and corruption runs the whole system. And obviously, everybody's rights are curtailed. Anybody who has a slight opposition to what the powers at the top want, then they will face the full force of the administration and may even be spied upon. How can this system be maintained? Well, huge amounts of money that come from elsewhere. Meanwhile, Hungarians have been completely abandoned. If they turn to the state for help, then no, there's complete indifference. Over 15 years, one of the best countries in Central Europe has become one of the poorest. We spend the least on social benefits, on healthcare, etc. And this is because over the past 15 years, we've had one-party rule. Well, what's the EU done? Well, it's found excuses, and we've seen it took 10 years for steps to be taken, and it was the European Parliament that actually raised its voice to make sure that that happened. Well, Hungarians don't have enough time to wait. The majority of Hungarians want change, and they want to see the end of the Orbán regime. We should never see one-party rule or full power for anybody in Hungary again. Thank you.
On behalf of the PFE Group, Madam Gall.
Thank you, President, Commissioner. For 15 years now, we've had a political witch hunt against Hungary, and more frustrated accusations. Now, obviously, we've had the Tavares report, the Sargentini report, and the Del Boscovi report, and now we have the Strick report, full of lies and double standards. And you don't seem to be bothered about facts. Orbán phobia is what rules the day. And there are also references to documents from NGOs. And it's turned out that they have received orders and they've received money from abroad to carry out smear campaigns against Hungary. And this is carried out because Hungary is against illegal migration, against gender ideology in schools. Hungary stands up for peace in Ukraine and rejects fast-track accession of Ukraine. And for this reason, we are punished, money is frozen, we are blackmailed with our voting rights potentially being withdrawn. But we don't want these anti-sovereign attacks. We don't want to be lectured and these kinds of political attacks. Therefore, we have presented an alternative resolution. I've been in this Parliament for 21 years, and I've seen that if the rules don't please the left or the EPP, they simply don't comply with them. But at the same time, they call for accountability on the rule from others. What kind of hypocrisy is that? And the timing speaks for itself. Like the previous reports, elections are coming up in Hungary in 5 months' time. And they even say openly they want a change of government in Hungary. And they try to find who will meet the requirements. It doesn't matter what they do. Hungarian voters have not been able to be misled, and they will not be misled with these lies again. Thank you.
Thank you, dear colleague. On behalf of the ECR Group, Madame Teodorescu.
Citizens who are watching this debate must know that, whether we like it or not, legally speaking, the European Parliament cannot activate Article 7, Paragraph 2 of the EU Treaty. And even if it could, this legal basis could not include the LGBTIQ plus community of Hungary and no other topic which belongs to national competences, such as healthcare or education. This report not only exceeds the mandate of the Parliament and of the EU in general, it even exceeds the imagination of the harshest critics of the Budapest governance, because it condemns the very Council for the same serious violation of EU values simply for not taking action against Hungary. Unfortunately, this debate and this report have nothing to do with the EU fundamental values. They have become a political weapon against a government which bothers people. What's really at stake here? Withdrawing the voting rights of an EU member state. As an ECR rapporteur, I support the cause and sovereignty of Hungary. Whatever is being done to Hungary today for its conservative positions may be done to any other EU member state tomorrow, including Romania or your own country.
Colleague, on behalf of the Renew Group, Mr. Corner.
Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen.
Dear colleagues, we are having this debate on Hungary and the Article 7 procedure. I don't know how many debates we've had, but we finally need to see action from the Council where this issue is tied up. We hear a lot of reaction. The AfD are well represented to defend Viktor Orban, but what are we really talking about here? It's not about conservative politics. It's that Viktor Orban's friends are living a palatial life, and at the same time, ordinary Hungarians are living in the poorest country in the EU. This level of corruption and violations of rule of law, this is what it's about. It's not about politics here. It's the people that are behind this. They defend Viktor Orban as the best, but they're promoting corruption and they want to see the citizens poorer. That's what this is really about. We should be very clear about that. We have rules in the EU to protect taxpayers' money. And we have this corruption and this violations of rule of law. This is what we're talking about. That's really the only thing this debate is about. So the Council must finally act to protect rule of law in the EU. Thank you.
Very much, dear colleague. On behalf of the Greens, Mr. Freud.
Dear colleagues, since Viktor Orban came to power in 2010, the European Union has given 80 billion euros to Hungary. 80 billion euros. This was money meant to modernize schools, to update hospitals, to bring fast internet to every corner of Hungary. Well, to do all these things that we do with EU money. But if you travel through Hungary and if you visit the neighboring countries, you can actually see corruption in the cityscapes, in the townscapes of Hungary. You can see that these 80 billions have actually not reached ordinary Hungarians, because the state of hospitals, the state of schools, the state of roads in Hungary, compared to its neighbors, is pretty bad. The economic performance of Hungary, Romania has overtaken Hungary, Poland has overtaken Hungary, Slovakia has overtaken Hungary. Pretty much all the neighbors have overtaken Hungary during the reign of Viktor Orban. And that's because you're stealing money on an industrial scale. If you look at the personal wealth of people like Metzaros, his son-in-law, Tiboc, they are becoming multi-millionaires, billionaires. Tiboc has doubled his assets in the last year alone. This is what's happening with EU taxpayer money in Hungary. It's a disgrace. And quite honestly, Commissioner, it's almost 3 years now that we have frozen some of the funding that is going to Hungary, because we know it's being stolen. It's being used for private jet vacations in the Maldives. It's being used for yachts instead of for ordinary Hungarians. And still we're sending billions. We have sent over 9 billion euros since the first money was frozen. Still we're enriching these people. That is why in this report with Tineke, we're asking that all the money be frozen. That's why we're submitting that amendment, that all the money needs to be frozen, because all of the money is being stolen. This is what this parliament needs to do. We need to stop funding the destruction of democracy and the rule of law in Hungary. This needs to stop, so we need to act. Commissioner, please look at this. Please table the necessary proposals. It's been 3 years. You say there has been no progress. Not a single milestone has been fulfilled. We can no longer just look at the attacks on the rule of law and democracy. We need to act. It's time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear colleague. On behalf of the left, Mr. Arvanitis.
Thank you very much, President. Commissioner, in the European Union, there is not a single member state that has to be a part of this project. I don't understand why they're complaining. We have values, we have principles. But many governments currently are undermining rule of law. And Mr. Orban is the top individual in that. And for some time now, Article 7 has been underway, and yet corruption continues. Judges are persecuted. LGBTIQ people are persecuted, journalists as well, anyone who doesn't agree with Orban. So what is clear is that there is a full lack of respect for law and for democracy in Hungary. We saw that as what happened with gay pride just a few months back when we were there on the ground. And so I should like to congratulate Madam Streeck for the text that she has put to us. And I should also like to thank the shadow rapporteurs from the S&D and from the EPP. We have worked excellently well together, honestly. And at a certain point, we find ourselves in a situation where the EU is losing its values. But many of us remember that. And therefore, we have to continue to fight for rule of law and continue on that path forward. Thank you.
Your colleague, on behalf of the ESN group, Madame Vordenberg.
Well, the lack of political will to tackle corruption and the limited powers of the Integrity Authority are a cause for deep concern. This is the only line of the text with which I can agree. However, we've seen disappearing text messages, the golden toilet scandal, and therefore it's difficult to believe that you have the political will to tackle corruption. Hungarians are not known for their political correctness, but rather for their insistence on the truth. And in light of that, I have a few comments to make about the report. When a tiny minority imposes its worldview on the majority society, we call that Bolshevism, and we recognise it even when it appears under the guise of the gender lobby. If you believe that protecting children as a priority is incompatible with human rights standards, in our view, that is abuse. In our view, restricting the right of assembly began with the police terror of 2006 in Hungary. You've never spoken out against that. And not with the pride marches that were held under police protection. And at those pride marches, it was the rights of those who demanded that the government enforce laws who had their rights restricted. If the protection of minorities is important for you, then you should speak out against those parts of the Slovak Beneš decrees that discriminate against indigenous Hungarian and German communities. We are also concerned about the violent attacks on Hungarian streets, and this is why we want to bring Ilaria Salis and her Antifa comrades to justice. If you want to make my country safer, then I ask you not to defend the far-left MEP who's been suspected of violent crime next time. We help those fleeing war, but we defend our borders against foreign invasions, and for that you owe us a debt of gratitude. We believe that the most serious restriction on academic freedom is when ideological dogmas are forced upon scientists or academics. But Hungarian academic life survived Lysenkoism, so it will survive gender studies as well. Freezing the funds we are entitled to is blackmail. And the use of the veto by member states does not show a lack of loyalty, but it shows that we're exercising our rights. In our opinion, as well, another thing, after a university is closed, you cannot continue teaching there, especially if it's in one of the most expensive parts of Budapest. And so next time, finally, I'd like to ask you to meet proper civil society representatives next time you collect data.
We go on to the second part of the debate now, and Mr. Vasquez Lazaro is the next speaker. Thank you very much, President, Commissioner. When we look at the Orban government, it's a lot more than an internal problem. It's a constant threat to EU values and to our democratic freedoms. When one member state disregards its counterbalances, it is not just bad for its citizens, but it compromises all of Europe's credibility. We need freedom of expression, independence of the judiciary, freedom of academia, of people being able to meet. People should be able to love who they want. Slowly, an ecosystem has been built where power is concentrated. Opposition voices are silenced. Now, this isn't a witch hunt, as Ms. Gall said. You don't seem to understand that Europe's value is in the independence of its judges, a pluralistic society, strong institutions and public officials who are never above the law and respect judicial decisions even when it's uncomfortable for them. These are the very essence of our democratic identity, and these pillars make the EU the best place in the world to live. We need to defend that. The Council should not be afraid to activate Article 6 when they believe that these fundamental values are under threat. And the Commission has to fight against this inertia and needs to act firmly to protect these values and the rule of law. It needs to be done in a direct and tangible way. Let me say, Hungary is not the only country that has these problems. In Spain, there was also an issue for leaking of confidential information. We have countries that are going against Article 12. It's important we defend legality, transparency, institutional counterbalances. It can't just be nice words. There has to be actions. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, señor Vázquez Lázaro. Now it's time for Mr. Smisek.
Koleżanki I koledzy, kiedy mówimy dziś...
Colleagues, now today we are speaking about rule of law and the Orban regime. We're not talking about abstract elements of the treaties. We're talking about the tangible issues related to citizens, their lives, and their rights. And I'd like to give you an anecdote. A journalist, an investigative journalist from Hungary, 31 years of age, discovered that his phone was tapped using Pegasus, not because he was a threat to security of the state, but because he was carrying out his job, investigating corruption, the interests of oligarchs that were closely linked to Orban's regime. Amnesty International confirmed that his telephone was the most tapped in all of Europe. A journalist, a citizen, a European citizen, treated as an enemy. That is the essence of the problem in Hungary. The government, the Orban government, knows no limits, and they use this as a way of revenge. Moreover, when it comes to the citizens, today Hungary is amongst one of the poorest countries of the EU. We also see, for example, that the courts are not free and that regional press and national press is sapped, attacks against civil society and academia. But this does not remain within the borders in Hungary. We have seen Ukraine, which is fighting Russia, the brutal attack of Russia, and Hungary is preventing the fundamental action and is questioning sanctions or trying to sabotage any EU action, all the while strengthening its links with the Kremlin. Therefore, it is clear there is a clear risk of a serious breach of EU values. The situation in Hungary is getting worse year by year. We call on the Council to trigger Article 7 and EU funds should go directly to the final beneficiaries, moving around the Orban government. Today, Orban is against European solidarity, and he is strengthening his links with the Kremlin, giving asylum to Polish asylum seekers that are fleeing justice in Poland. And we have two former justice ministers from Poland that are currently sought by courts in Poland, and they are currently standing in asylum in Hungary. Therefore, I'd like to go back to the anecdote at the outset of my speech. The journalist in Hungary teaches us that when you start to spy on journalists, democracy dies, and it dies in fear. And our responsibility today is to put an end to that free, and we hope for Hungary to be free.
From ECR group, do you accept it? Okay, thank you. My next speaker is Mr. Notek.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, a harmful conglomerate of Socialists, People Party, Liberals and Greens set our great continent on fire. Look what this conglomerate did to our own countries. They opened borders and imported people with culture incompatible with EU values. They increased regulation to such level that businesses better leave our continent. They reduce freedom and slowly install censorship. And they use people money to finance political NGOs and so-called independent fact-checkers and media to hit anybody who disagrees. And these technocrats now attack Hungary because of values. Why? Because of fear, Hungary. Because of fear, other patriots like in Czech Republic, Poland or Slovakia. Because we have safe streets. We do not import culture nor religion. And because we are able to say no to Brussels if they come with migration pact or with federalization of Europe. So, dear Hungary, dear citizens of Hungary, one message for you. Be proud of your great country and your values and never surrender. Thank you. Köszönöm.
Sorry, dear colleague. You have a blue card from Mr. Sipper. Not attached. Mr. Sipper, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. In accordance with our rules of procedure, I would also like to react to the reply that my colleague will give me. Dear colleague, I was wondering if you could explain to me the rhetorical concept of whataboutism. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sipper. You have time to answer, 30 seconds.
Herr Sieper, Sie verstehen nur Bahnhof. Danke.
Well, you won't understand that.
Thank you very much. Now it's time for Mr. Inseldini. You have the floor.
Now, the umpteenth attempt to hit Hungary on a rule of law. This is used by the left as a political arm against those that they don't agree with. The founding values of the EU. What are these values? Green Deal, destroying identity, gender issues, surrogacy. Well, we know then De Gasperi, the founding fathers, would defend the Christian values. They would defend children and promote families. The problem is not Orban today. The problem is elsewhere. Trying to hit a government that doesn't line up, that would be dangerous for all of the nations and all of the citizens. Defending Hungary means today that we defend a sovereign state, one that promotes veritable, real European values and political plurality in Europe, without which we would have a future where we would be standardized, communist, and uniform.
My next speaker is Mr. Brandstad.
Thank you, President, dear Commissioner, dear colleagues. Ungarn ist ein wunderschönes.
Hungary is a beautiful country, it's a fantastic history, very courageous people. And what has Orban done? Well, hundreds of thousands of people are leaving their country. The economy is stagnating, the healthcare system is broken, and corruption is worse than anywhere else in Europe. And they divide society, they have an enemy from abroad, Brussels, the universities have been destroyed, so the next generation will be jeopardized, and the media has also been targeted by Orban. And here the media has to ask the minister certain questions, for example. And then we have their partners, Russia and China, they're indebted to those countries to significant levels. But then the FPÖ in Austria says that Orban is a model. We need to stop that. What Orban has done in Hungary must not happen in Austria, and it must not happen in any other country in the wonderful European Union.
Card from Mrs. Stiger Petra.
Sehr interessant. Ja, bitte.
Okay. Madam, you have the floor.
Ja, vielen Dank.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brandstetter. So your speech was full of a lack of respect, and it's a disgrace. And your party has no idea about diplomacy. Now, we're talking here about rule of law. Do you know what the rule of law actually is? I think it's really shocking and absurd that you criticize what's happening in Hungary. Your party wants to undermine the fundamentals of our constitution. If you want to talk about neutrality as well, for example, and look at what is happening there. Look at your hypocrisy and the double standards you are applying.
In Österreich würde man für das Wort.
Well, I think in Austria, for the word hypocrisy, there would be a point of order. And secondly, the rule of law does not work in Hungary at all. The judiciary is under Orban's control. There is still a decree-based rule since the pandemic started. And look at the economy. This is particularly bad. In Austria, it's not always easy for journalists, but they do not suffer what happens in Hungary. In Hungary, all of the media that criticize the government are closed. If Austria were to become Hungary, we would see the economy break, the healthcare system would be destroyed, and our fantastic democracy would also be destroyed. We need to work for Austria and for Austria in the European Union. Thank you.
La señora Galán, tiene usted la palabra.
Ms. Galán, the floor is yours.
Gracias.
Thank you, President.
Gracias, Presidente.
Thank you, President. This Parliament has been calling into question rule of law in Hungary for 7 years. 7 years and nothing has happened because Hungary itself is using its veto right to not be sanctioned. Now, meanwhile, in the country, the situation hasn't gotten better. It's worse on a daily basis, as we saw, for example, the attempt to ban Pride in Budapest. The Orban government continues to cut rights, freedoms, persecutes communities and minorities, and according to Transparency International, Hungary is the most corrupt country in the Union. As if that weren't enough, it's the only country of the EU that has done away with the ICC so that it could welcome Netanyahu. The experts consider its political system an illiberal democracy. Therefore, I'm wondering if we shouldn't wonder if it is even a democracy today. Commissioner, we need action, clear and blunt action from the Commission and from the Council. The right should get rid of its toxic embrace of the hard right and stop protecting Orban as if he were one of their own. Thank you. You would have a blue card from the ECR, Mr. Orsova.
Mr. Orsova, you have the floor.
I'm waiting for the translation. I speak in Polish. Bardzo dziękuję. Chciałem do pani zadać pytanie, kim pani jest, że...
Thank you very much. Who are you, madam? Who are you to lecture us, to lecture Hungary?
Yes, I'm waiting for this. Okay. Kim pani jest, żeby pouczać Węgrów i demokrację?
Who are you, madam, to lecture Hungary? To lecture Hungary on democracy. The Hungarians decided who the prime minister would be. Perhaps you do not understand democracy yourself. You're talking, for example, about corruption. What should we call what Schroeder did back in the day? I suggested sanctions at that time, and you were against that. The Hungarians know very well who they want to elect as prime minister. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your question, because this helps me to state that democracy, lectures on democracy come from this European Parliament. We have a treaty that establishes precisely what rule of law is. If Hungary does not want to be a part of the EU, it can open the door and leave. We defend a free and plural Europe. Europe of restrictions and exclusion does not have any place here in this Parliament. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Galan.
You have the floor.
Warum zeigt man denn immer mit den Fingern?
Why are we always pointing the finger at Hungary? Why don't we point the finger at Germany instead, where an AfD mayor was discriminating against from the AfD, or issues that we've had in the Bundestag as well, changing our basic law. But of course, no one ever calls into question the rule of law in Germany. Let me just say to you, Mr. Brandstetter, I am safer in Budapest than I am in Vienna. The EU acts as if they are in charge of Hungary. We've been hearing these criticisms of rule of law for the last 8 years, this infringement procedure, just because there is a government there that you do not like. And even despite all of this, there was a 2/3 majority in the last elections, a majority you could only dream of. And in the EU elections, one of the best results. Hungary has delivered. Poverty's gone from 30% to 19%, 1 million new jobs created. And what has the Commission done? They're cutting Erasmus, research projects. They're taking this out on students and researchers. We often hear references to the NGOs, but the rule of law calls into question. This is called into question because they're financed by EU money. We have a democratically elected president, and I will say no more than that. Thank you.
Sorry. You have a blue card from Mr. Schipper, non-attached. Yeah. Do you accept it?
Yes.
Mr. Schipper, you have the floor.
Vielen Dank, Frau Kahn, dass Sie mein
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kahn, for accepting my blue card. I think it's very interesting that you're talking about the money going to NGOs rather than to your party. I mean, I think a lot of it's going to Russia and China. Now, you are criticizing everything being politically motivated. Please let me get to the end of my statement. So you're criticizing that this is all political motivated, that it's not about rule of law. But how many European Court of Justice rulings from the Court of Justice have you personally read?
Madam Kahn, you have the floor.
Well, I'm not sure that this is really a question. You're just talking about money that goes to China and Russia. Now, you're in the non-attached because nobody wants to work with you. I have looked very closely at this rule of law report and what Hungary is being accused of. The child protection law, for example, 90% of voters were in favour of that because we don't want sexualized content to be shown on the street. The LGBTI community shouldn't be dancing in front of young children. That's what we're talking about when you're pointing the finger at Hungary.
Schipper, Madam Kahn. Mr. Schipper has the right to follow up 30 seconds. Don't you want to answer him? You have then 2 more blue cards. Don't you accept them? Mr. Schipper, you have 30 seconds.
Es ist wirklich traurig, Frau Kahn.
I think that's really a shame that you don't want to participate in the spirit of the blue cards. Let me just explain what happens with the non-attached. You decide to be non-attached. It's not really an issue of friends here. Now, I'm not sure you really have comprehensively looked at these judgments because this would go against your argumentation here.
Mr. Schipper, okay, thank you very much. Madam Khan. Mr. Blaha, you have the floor now.
Obracam sa na vás ako zástupca tradične.
Thank you. I am speaking to you as part of the Smer Party. We're not part of the Patriots, but we do stand up for Hungary and its national sovereignty. And what we're seeing here is really Brussels-based colonialism. Orban's against migration, and so are we. And when it comes to their LGBT policies as well, we support that. And then now we see the golden toilet scandal in Ukraine. Imagine, and then look at what's happening with NGOs. You have no right to punish the Hungarians for their political decisions. We want peace with Russia. And we saw almost an assassination take place because of this point of view in Slovakia. You are interfering in the electoral campaign in Hungary, and you want Orban to lose the elections. Slovakia will never allow Brussels to punish Hungary, and we will do our best to go against those decisions.
You have the floor.
So how many times are we going to have to continue to denounce the systematic violations of rule of law by the Orban government? It wasn't enough to ban Pride. Mr. Abel, a EU citizen, is at risk of prison because of organizing a Pride event in Peszk. How is it possible in 2025 that Europe continues to tolerate something of this sort? How can we stand idly by when a member state continues to trample on the rules and rights of citizens? How many times are we going to have to stand in this hemicycle and speak out against this shameful practice without the Council and the Commission acting? Meloni, Salvini, Fizzo, they are adopting this illiberal model, and it's slowly encroaching on our rights in Europe, a union that is founded on liberal democracies and the European Charter of Fundamental Rights. This is not dead word. We must trigger Article 7, suspending the voting rights of Hungary and freezing EU funds. For EU rights, there is no compromise, no acceptable compromise. Thank you.
Mr. Buxadi, you have the floor. It is worth it, despite your insults and your lies. It is worth defending Hungary here and now, because it's defending ourselves, our identity, our sovereignty, the freedom of our nations. It is worth the efforts. In 56 Western powers left Hungary alone. They made a bargain that led to the death and silencing of the young people. It wasn't just the Soviets. It's you, your speeches of hate, defamation, your false reforms paid by your false philanthropists, your Article 7 claiming you speak for the Hungarian people. The Soviets also claim to be philanthropists, but you are protecting a criminal Antifa member. What we are defending here today, when we defend Hungary, we defend the innocence of children, the autonomy of families, the freedom of the people, and the sovereignty of a nation. So yes, it is worth it.
Gracias, señor Buxade. Mr. Ozdoba.
Bardzo dziękuję. Panie Przewodniczący, po pierwsze chciałbym wspomnieć o tym, że jesteście...
Thank you very much. I should like to state that you are hypocrites. Democracy decided this. 88% Orban won. In 2014, 2019, 2024, and you would like to make the decision in the stead of the Hungarians, ex-justice ministers, you do not like the conservative government in Poland, and therefore you take this stance. You don't like the Russian approach. Just a few weeks back, I suggested that we take sanctions, and the left stood up. You were afraid of Schrader. You would like to lecture Hungary because Orban was against illegal immigration? That is why he won the elections, because he is against harmful ideologies, and that is why he wins elections. And that hurts you. It hurts you that Orban is independent. It's the Hungarians that decided, not you.
There's a very simple principle. When you join a club, a group, or an organisation, or indeed our union, you comply with the rules of law. In this case, Articles 2, Treaty of the European Union and the European Charter of Fundamental Rights. In Hungary at the moment, we have attacks on rule of law and public institutions, freedom of media, attacks on civil society, attacks on people's sexual orientation, women's and girls' reproductive rights, migration and asylum, and international justice. These are the harsh realities of life in Hungary under Orban and Fidesz. And no amount of clapping or intimidation from over there will hide the fact that people in Hungary are already very concerned about the autocracy that is happening in Budapest. And if you only want to know why, all you're trying to do is find people over there to drive divisions in society in Hungary and across Europe. But the fact of the matter is, less people are going to Hungary and more people are leaving. And you should be asking yourself that question. Why are the academics, why are the young people, why are so many Hungarians leaving Hungary to go to other countries within the European Union? I'll tell you why. Because of oppression and economic stagnation, because of Orban and Fidesz and his corrupt cronies.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. Mr. Folich, you have the floor.
President, Hungary, what are those particular values that are being violated right now? We see what's going on in different countries, in Romania, where democracy is essentially being undermined, where elections are being annulled, and no-go areas for children in different countries as well. So all of a sudden, let's not forget that in Hungary, that there were individuals that were killed by Afghanis. So indeed, in Germany and France, numerous different issues which are totally ignored. But you look at Hungary and what's going on there. So you've remained silent on those events in numerous different countries. But Hungary, you've targeted them. National sovereignty, Christian values, protecting the borders, and peace. That's what you're criticizing right now. You're against Orban, you're against Hungary, and you're against the identity of that country and the character of it. It's arrogance, actually, what you're expressing. And it's a socialist dictatorship that was fought against in that country. And right now, what you're implementing and what you're imposing is something similar to that. Thank you.
You have a blue card from Mr. Korna from Renew Group. Do you accept it? You have the floor.
Vielen Dank, Herr Kollege.
Thank you, Mr. Fröhlich, for taking my question. Maybe just one thing from you, because the AfD are always saying that they want to defend German taxpayers. How can you reconcile this with your conscience, this massive level of corruption, these cases that have been described in detail 1,000 times over, that are documented, where a millionaire is saying, I'm rich because God, fortune and Viktor Orban has helped me. Why don't you act against that? Because this is German taxpayers' money disappearing in people's dark pockets. Couldn't you waste one single word on that?
Mr. Fullich.
Yeah.
Mr. Köhler, Mr. Bovendig said that indeed these corruption issues have to be dealt with. But But let's not forget that these particular issues, where money is going from the German taxpayers, there is money going from the German taxpayers for these gender issues, for this gender ideology, for undermining our very, very principles. That's a waste as money as well. So if you're going to look at the waste of money, then look at it elsewhere, not just where you're talking about right now.
Please, Mr. Freud. You are not. Yes, please, Mr. Freud.
Yeah, please repeat.
It's not your time. Please finish.
Yeah, I already said what I wanted to say, but if you want to blue card me again, please feel free.
No, he hasn't asked for it. Thank you very much, dear colleague.
You asked something.
Blue card. My next speaker is Mr. Karataisa.
Monsieur le Président.
President, Article 7 shouldn't be about imposing politics on a member state if it doesn't want them. The Hungarian people have had free democratic elections and they can determine their own foreign policy, protect families and its migrant policies, what happens in its schools, its social security, as it sees fit. The attempts to submit this country to a supranational dictate means that the EU has become an empire, imprisoning European peoples from a bygone age. The state of law, as imagined by the Union, it goes beyond democratic choices. This rule of law for the Union is about depriving the Hungarians of the right to a state. Let's defend a sovereign Hungary against the EU, which is abusing these rights that have been confided in it by the Hungarians.
You have the floor.
Not a single crown should go to rogue governments like the one in Hungary today. We can never accept attacks on people who think differently, LGBTI people, journalists, civil society, or against women's rights, and certainly not that our Swedish and European taxpayers' money is used for strengthening this form of government. Step by step, Viktor Orban is transforming Hungary into a full-blown dictatorship, and yes, it concerns us all, partially because we're part of a common European society built on values of democracy and rule of law, and because this is an anti-democrat. Any anti-democrat in any European state should see that they will not be accepted without consequences. But above all, for the Hungarian people, they deserve better. It's unacceptable that EU countries haven't been able to agree on removing the Hungarians' right to vote in Council. But now it's high time for the Commission to freeze all economic support to Orban's repressive regime. Our taxpayers should strengthen Europe, not reward those who suppress.
Merci.
Thank you, President. Every time Brussels wants to find a guilty party, they point at Hungary. Today, you talk about a clear risk of a violation of European values. Well, what bothers you is not the state of the rule of law. It is that a sovereign country refuses your ideology. Hungary is protecting its borders. Hungary refuses mass immigration. You're sanctioning them. Hungary is defending its culture and its democratic choices. You're creating a threat. In reality, you don't allow the Hungarians to vote in a different way than what Brussels expects. You are persecuting a member state. You're turning a blind eye to anti-Semitism, migratory chaos in other countries. There, all of a sudden, nobody is talking about sanctions. Let's be clear. Attacking Hungary is not defending Europe. It is punishing people which isn't giving up its sovereignty. And sadly, in this union, you are free only if you think as in Brussels.
Madame Karlsruhe, you have the floor.
President, ladies and gentlemen, Hungary's government is not just working against Ukraine and hanging out with Putin, but it's objecting to the rules that actually underpin Europe's democracy. As long as Orban has friends supporting him, he will continue to ban pride parades and attack the right to abortion. Friends such as the Sweden Democrats, who here in the European Parliament believe that Hungary should keep its right to vote and continue to cash in lots of EU money. That's something that we Liberals do not support. If you don't respect the agreements you've agreed to, then there should be consequences. If you don't deal with corruption, then you should deal with the consequences. Hungary should not have a single word to say on this, and they shouldn't get a single euro in support as long as Orban is undermining European democracy. Our patience is wearing thin.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. Madam Lasakova, you have the floor.
Colleagues, I'm very pleased that in this plenary we are talking about the rule of law, and I do not like if somewhere there is corruption. For example, in the last commission, Mr. Reinders was a commissioner. Today he is accused. Whether he will be guilty, that's the decision for the court, but he sent different letters to individual member states, and today we are in such a situation that every member state somehow breaches human rights on which the EU is based. Apart from 3 human rights, every human right could be limited. Even the right for life is not an absolute right. There are 3 rights which are absolute. So every limited right which is limited by the law, if accepted by the court, then it is okay. Mr. Commissioner, that's slightly personal. You were the reason why I voted against this commission. For me, you are a very pleasant surprise. Thank you very much.
Very much, dear colleague, Mr. Zerman.
Colleagues, Commissioner McGrath, Ukraine is trying to defend the fundamental values of Europe. Orban's Hungary is trampling on these values. These are judges who have been muzzled, NGOs pursued, and generalized corruption, amongst other things. Europe in 2022 took financial sanctions to help residents of Hungary. In the Budgets Committee last week, my report, which calls on the Commission to take to 200% from 50% of freezing of funds, has been adopted. And the Hungarians have infiltrated the commissions. The Hungarians are holding up the use of Russian assets for Ukraine, and they're holding up the adhesion of Ukraine to the EU, spitting on the Maidan disputes. The hand of Europe shouldn't tremble, and under the treaties they should suspend Orban's right of veto in the European Council.
Mr. Stega. Madam Stega, sorry.
Ja, die ungarischen
Yes, the Hungarian elections are coming closer and closer, and the EU is doing what it can do best at influencing elections. We're seeing one political attack after another. The EU wants to deploy all its resources to counter the Orban government and its party and allow its puppet to take place. Mr. Magyar, who is a puppet of Mr. Weber. So you want to get rid of the veto right for Hungary to allow armaments and to go to Ukraine. And you silent when Hungary is fighting for peace instead of war. for families rather than other nonsense. It's the interests of Hungary's population that Orban is working. It's not dancing the tune of Brussels. But I can promise you one thing, you're not going to be successful here because the citizens have seen through your tricks. They're going to show you what democracy means, and this EU propaganda, manipulation will be rejected out of hand.
You have 2 blue cards, one from Mr. Freud from the Greens, and the other one from Mr. Brandstetter from Renew. Do you accept them? Jens Brandstetter. Okay. Mr. Brandstetter, you have the floor.
Ja, danke.
Thank you. Ms. Steger, 2 questions. Do you know how many people have left Hungary between 2015 and 2013? It was actually 400,000 people. Second question, Ms. Kahn said she doesn't feel well in Vienna. Do you know who in recent years which has become the most livable city in the world? And do you know, a study, what is the safest city in the world? Where is Vienna on that scale? Is Budapest above or below that?
Madam Steger.
Mr. Brandstetter, contrary to you, I know who has put these questions to whom, and I know which is the most livable city in the world. This wasn't the citizens who were asked. This was a stitch-up. I know you have no idea because you don't have your head to the ground in Austria. You don't know what citizens are saying. It's hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants that are coming. Just go to Favoriten, walk the streets as a woman. You wouldn't feel safe. But you're in the government, you're giving up our independence and our security with your European policies.
Señor López Aguilar, tiene usted la palabra.
Mr. López Aguilar, you have the floor, please.
Sorry, Mr. Brandstetter. Señor López Aguilar, tiene usted la palabra.
You have the floor, Mr. López Aguilar. Thank you very much. Commissioner McGrath, 8 years, nothing less than that, since the sanctions procedure, Article 7, against the government of Orban was triggered for violating the very, very principles and values of Article 2. It's an issue of credibility of the European Union because Orban has responded with total. He's ignored all of this. So this violation of the articles of Article 2, let's not forget, we are defending European citizens, the citizens of Hungary as well. We're defending the minorities of Hungary as well. They are also citizens of the European Union. Political pluralism as well. And all those activists who have raised their voices against Orban, they've been completely obliterated. The constitutional architecture as well is being undermined. So, Commissioner, it's now time for the Commission to move forward with the conditionality clause, to move forward with those particular sanctions. Action has to be taken immediately to deal with these particular violations and to uphold Article 7 of the treaties.
You have the floor.
That's me.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Laszlo. The real one.
You want total, limitless foreign intervention in Hungary. This is the dream of the TISA party, the European People's Party, and the left-wing political groups. So what is the essence of the draft resolution against Hungary that will be voted on tomorrow? First of all, you want to suspend all EU funds allocated to Hungary to favor TISA in the campaign. We know this because Kinga Kollár has let it slip. You want to suspend Hungary's voting rights and veto in the Council. This is how you want to pave the way for Ukraine's accession to the EU, as discussed not only by you, but also by Ukrainian leaders. And thirdly, after the USAID funds have been cut off, you are demanding that the European Commission fill the coffers of liberal left-wing NGOs and media outlets with rolling euros. And you are doing this in the name of protecting EU values. Are these EU values? There seems to be no limit to shameless cynicism. Hungarians do not want foreign interference. Only the Hungarian people can decide on the fate and future of Hungary.
28th of June, I was in Budapest for the Pride Parade. The government there is transforming Hungary into an autocratic system. Europe is not a bankomat machine. It isn't a till just handing out money. There has to be respect of fundamental rights, and this construct has to open its eyes right now. Article 7 has to be respected. Sanctions have to be implemented immediately. The mechanism has to be triggered immediately. Nothing has changed in these years that have passed after so many warnings. So it's now time to defend our values in the years to come in a world which is increasingly difficult. We cannot allow ourselves to make any sort of mistakes. There cannot be any slippage whatsoever. Thank you.
Psychosis, mental illnesses unknown by those affected and leading to paranoia or schizophrenia. Those who set the agenda have psychosis. The EU that doesn't talk about Russia is turning its back on the US and China. The EU has resolutions on human rights, giving lessons to countries throughout the world. Europe is isolating itself, is talking about international matters. Each plenary sessions, we talk about Hungary. It's not psychosis, it's an obsession, an illness. The subject today is the existence of a clear risk of a serious breach by Hungary of the values on which the Union is founded. The Hungarian rulers don't have psychosis. It's a difference with the EU's representatives. That should be welcomed. Long live independent Hungary. And in terms of rule of law, look at Romania with cancelled elections and what's happening in Ukraine.
And Mr. Domotor has now the floor.
When elections approach in Hungary, then the same thing happens always. The European Parliament prepares a report to discredit Hungary, and yet another debate is held. This is the 34th. And these speeches sound as if they were the love children of ChatGPT and political cliches. Facts, they don't matter. Well, if democracy really mattered to you, then you would debate really important issues, like the former Justice Commissioner who is being charged with money laundering, the hundreds of billions that are disappearing into golden toilets in Ukraine, while here, vaccine shipments are negotiated via text messages and Antifa terrorists are given immunity. In France, the most popular candidate is not allowed to run. In other places, election results are annulled. When these will be debated? Well, never. Because what's happening here has nothing to do with the rule of law. It sounds like a weary attempt to exert pressure, but we won't give in, but we will give you our answer at the elections.
Dear colleague, I have 9 requests for the Catch the Eye, and I'm going to give the floor to all of them. But please, 1 minute. First one is Mr. Sverna, seat 676.
Szanowny Panie Przewodniczący, Wysoki Parlamencie, rozmawiamy o
President. Colleagues, we're talking about Hungary. In Hungary, people are looking for refuge, people who are being sought in other member states. 2 examples. One example from Poland. For some months, the former justice minister from Poland is in Hungary, and the prosecutor is reproaching him regarding the elections, but Hungary has given him a safe place. Another example, the former minister, Justice Minister, Jobro. His immunity was removed, and presumably he will get asylum in Hungary. And that must end. We must have the possibility.
Set 210.
Thank you, Mr. President. Democracy, the rule of law are the cornerstones that Europe was built upon. There should be no room in Europe for corruption. Judicial independence, free media, and the right to assembly must be protected. While we are seeing signs that these values are under threat in Hungary, the European institutions have done a terrible job in addressing legitimate issues. Instead of fact-based and objective evaluations, the EU keeps focusing on Hungarian healthcare systems, family policies, and even Hungarian public transport. The EU is making a fool of itself. If the EU elite is so worried about Hungarian public transport and healthcare and so on, maybe you should resign, move to Hungary, and try to fix these issues. Because as an EU representative, these matters don't belong to your table. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. Mr. Minchev, seat 192.
Thank you very much, Chair. Dear Mr. Commissioner, dear colleagues, democracy is like a dike holding back a rising tide. If we ignore the first crack and we hesitate to reinforce the walls, the flood will still come. And when it does, it will not just wash away one country's rule of law, but will undermine trust in our entire Union. Hungary's backsliding did not happen overnight. It grew in the silence of our hesitation. Every day we delay, every compromise we make with impunity, we send a message that the rule of law is negotiable, that corruption can be tolerated, that judicial independence is optional. But the cost of inaction is not just Hungary's, it's ours. Because when we allow one member state to dismantle democracy, we embolden others. And what starts as a crack becomes an unbridgeable divide. This report is not just about Hungary, it's a test of our resolve. The longer we wait, the harder it is to reverse the damage. We saw it now in Hungary, and unless we act decisively, we will see it elsewhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. Mr. Hangluth, seat 613.
Those who are talking about the rule of law in Hungary today were the same who were pushing for the left-wing terrorist Salis to be freed. And we've heard people having maintained that they've supported that. So a suspected left-wing terrorist is being supported because they think they're supporting the TISA group. And if you are trying to make political credit from left-wing support for TISA, you are undermining the rule of law. TISA and Peter Magyar are the ones who are undermining law there.
My friend, Mr. Schipper, seat 841.
Thank you, Mr. President. Liebe Menschen Europas.
People of Europe, when one fought in kindergarten and didn't know what to say, people would answer and say, "You're just stupid." Just a way to insult people. And the same thing that is happening right now. The populists and extremists in this House are doing the same thing. Anybody who accuses Hungary of this violation of rule of law, Mr. Flocan, our friends from Austria, they simply respond and say they have no arguments. They have no arguments at all. And because their policy is one of hate. It is not based on values, on hope, and on happiness. You are poison for our continent. You're poison for your countries. And the moment will come where people will wake up and you'll be tossed out of this parliament. And I'll be very happy on that day. Thank you.
Sorry. Madam Adamovic, seat 270.
Czy państwa całkowicie autorytarne może być w Unii Europejskiej? Niezależne od rządu, zależne od rządu.
I don't know if an authoritarian state should be in the EU. The judges are dependent on the government. The opposition is attacked. The media isn't free. The elections aren't honest. That is the definition of an authoritarian state. That is the exact description of the Orban regime. We have done it in Poland. We've managed to free ourselves from the Kaczynski power before this, its tentacles tried to take over the elections. Now in Hungary, there is the fear of prison for those who stole from the regime. It's the former Justice Minister and Vice Minister are hidden away there.
Seat 347.
Szanowny Panie Przewodniczący.
Thank you, President, ladies and gentlemen. This debate is a further example of the hypocrisy in this chamber. You're saying that you're in favour of the rule of law and you're defending it, but if in another state somebody wins the elections who doesn't come from your world, you shout fascism or you accuse them of fascism. Democracy just means if everything goes according to your plan, if your mates are in, Commissioner Reinders or Eva Kaili, who have prepared resolutions and criticised Poland at the time of the Law and Justice Party's rule. Today, Donald Tusk has the power in Poland. He's your friend. And we've heard a great deal about this. Just 1 month before legal proceedings, he said that he should be arrested and that law should be used the way I want it to be used.
Madame Fries, seat 32.
I must admit, I find it a little bit funny how some colleagues in this House seem to think we have this debate because someone doesn't like the government in Hungary. No, this is about a government in Hungary who seems that they don't like their own citizens, that they don't respect the democracy that the country that they have has elected them. But Hungary deserves better than this. The citizens deserve better than Orban and his corrupt friends, deserves better than a government that breaks the rule of law. Authoritarians always start by going after the minorities. That's why protecting them is the front line of defending democracy itself. So when Orban and his government targets them, he's testing whether we in Europe will blink. Europe is a union of values, not a cash machine for leaders who undermine democracy at home while demanding our respect abroad. Orban tries to marginalize, but EU must defend, because they're the European citizens and their rights are non-negotiable. They deserve our unwavering support. Hungary and its citizens deserve better than Orban.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. And my last catch the eye time is for Madame Janovici Sosoaka, seat 858.
Thank you. I will speak Romanian. But please stop this scandal there. În primul rând, tot ceea ce se întâmplă aici.
First of all, everything that's happening here has nothing to do with Hungary. Everything we've heard refers to Romania, in fact. We should be discussing the infringement against Romania. This is a dangerous precedent if you approve this situation, because we are talking about the cancellation of all the rights and freedoms, all fundamental rights and freedoms, and the cancellation of any trace of democracy in the European Union. You talk about corruption. What corruption? Maybe in the European Commission, maybe the corruption regarding the vaccine contracts. Why isn't the President of the Commission giving us access to her messages? You're talking about the rule of law. What rule of law? In Romania, you ordered the cancellation of elections. The Socialists and Democrats were talking about the power being held by one person, but that's been happening in Romania for 36 years upon your orders. All the socialists who are now in charge of Romania were asking about the Hungarians that left Hungary. So 10 million Romanians have left Romania since we joined the European Union.
Thank you. Grazie.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Now, on behalf of the Commission, Commissioner McGrath.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I'd like to thank all of the honourable members for their contribution to what was a vigorous and lively debate. As I explained in my earlier intervention, the Commission continues to share many of the concerns expressed by the European Parliament in its recent proposal of September 2018, triggering the Article 7.1 TEU procedure for Hungary. Our concerns regarding the rule of law in Hungary are clearly stated in the Commission's annual rule of law reports, most recently in the edition published in July of this year, where we had to report no progress in respect of 7 of the 8 recommendations from last year. There are also several values-related infringement proceedings ongoing against Hungary that the Commission has brought to the Court of Justice of the EU. A number of those are pending, and we anticipate judgments in the period ahead. And as I said earlier on, the Recovery and Resilience Facility, the Budgetary Conditionality Regulation and the Charter Horizontal Enabling Condition have all been deployed. The country-specific recommendation to Hungary of the 8th of July 2025, issued by the Council and related to the rule of law and the single market in the context of the European semester, also points to important issues to be addressed. The Commission continues to believe that the Article 7.1 procedure offers a useful avenue for political dialogue and should continue until the concerns underlying the Parliament's recent proposal have been effectively addressed. In my first year as a Commissioner, I've attended 2 such discussions at the General Affairs Council in relation to this Article 7 procedure, one in May and one in recent weeks. And I and my team in the Commission remain available to support the Council in its consideration of the Article 7 procedure. But it is a matter for the Council to consider that matter. Our union is based on cooperation around our shared values. The Commission remains committed to engage constructively with the Hungarian authorities on all of these issues. And I think it is important, finally, to highlight that the rule of law is not some abstract concept for any or all member states. It is a fundamental part of the legal architecture of the European Union, provided for in Article 2 of the Treaty and defined in legislation passed by this House as well. And it remains a core binding obligation of all member states of the European Union. My final point is a broad one, and it relates to the next MFF. And as you know, the Commission in July published its proposals, and it seeks to give expression to the commitment that we made when we came into office, that we would seek to build a closer link between respect for rule of law and implementation of rule of law recommendations with access to EU funds. So, Chair and honourable members, thank you for your attention and thank you for the debate this evening, and I look forward to continuing to work with you in a spirit of cooperation on all of these matters.
Grazie. Grazie.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Tineke Strick now.
Chair, I'd like to thank
the democratic and value-based majority in this Parliament for its support. Their contributions today reflect how we wrote this report, with outrage over the violations that the Hungarian people are subjected to every day, with frustration that the EU has let it get so far, with anger at the lack of action, and when action is taken, at the lack of consistency and communication. And the fact that this Parliament has been calling for stronger measures for years without sufficient effect. So we call upon the EU institutions again. If the EU wants to protect its values, the political leaders who persistently breach them must face consequences. If not, their impunity will inspire others, as we see in an increasing number of member states, but also even here in the European Parliament. And that threatens our values in the EU as a whole. And eventually, the actors that are still upholding and protecting the rule of law in Hungary, civil society, independent media, human rights defenders, they cannot keep defending EU values if the EU itself fails to stand up for them. Chair, people in Hungary deserve to live in freedom, without discrimination, without interference, without corruption or repression by their government. They count on us. And therefore, I would like to thank again my shadow rapporteurs for their loyal and ambitious cooperation in this process, as well as the LIBE Secretariat and our advisors. Let us continue to join forces until the Hungarian people are truly free and protected. Thank you.
Grazie, grazie.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody. The debate's now closed and the vote will take place tomorrow. The next item on the agenda is Mr. Lehner's report, Enhancing Police Cooperation in relation to the prevention, detection and investigation of migrant smuggling and trafficking in human beings, enhancing Europol's support to preventing and combating such crimes. So, without further ado, I give the floor to the rapporteur, Mr. Lehner.
Thank you very much, Madam President, dear Commissioner Suica, dear colleagues. Let me first of all, at the end of this legislative procedure, thank first of all the colleagues who have worked with us on this file. I think your cooperation was excellent. I would also like to thank the team of the Commission.